When the ceasefire was announced, few in Gaza dared to believe it. The city had been under fire for so long that silence felt strange, almost frightening. For weeks, bombs had fallen without rest and the night sky glowed orange with explosions. But now, the sound of war had stopped. The Israeli army was pulling back. Their tanks and armored trucks moved out of northern Gaza, and for the first time in months, the people could step outside without hearing the whistle of rockets or the buzz of drones. Yet, as the dust settled, a new power rose from the ruins. The war had ended, but control of Gaza was far from over. Hamas was back, and it was not coming quietly. As soon as Israeli troops withdrew, Hamas fighters appeared almost instantly. They came out of tunnels, basements, and shattered buildings. Trucks filled with armed men rolled through the streets, waving green flags and shouting commands. To them, this was not just a ceasefire. It was a moment to reclaim their authority. Within hours, Hamas had set up checkpoints, replaced local militias, and declared that Gaza was once again under its control. The message was unmistakable. The occupiers had left, but Hamas was now the law. In the first few hours, hope and fear mixed in equal measure. Families emerged from the rubble to find what was left of their homes. Mothers searched for children they had lost during the chaos. Fathers gathered water from broken pipes. For a few brief moments, people dared to feel relief. No planes roared overhead. No bombs fell. But soon, whispers spread through the neighborhoods. Hamas was arresting people. Some were accused of helping Israel during the war. Others were local rivals or clan leaders who had challenged Hamas's rule while the fighting raged. By evening, those whispers turned into gunfire. In Gaza City's Tel al-Hawa district, the sounds of automatic weapons cracked through the night as Hamas fighters clashed with a powerful local family. The Dogmush clan had resisted Hamas's control in the past, and this time was no different. The battle was short, but brutal. When it was over, Hamas had captured the area and sent a warning to anyone else who thought of standing against them. Their rule was not just returning, it was being enforced. Hamas then turned its focus to re-establishing order, at least on the surface. The group reopened offices that had been closed during the war. Trucks began collecting trash, workers fixed broken power lines, and the water supply started flowing again in some neighborhoods. It was an attempt to show that Hamas could bring stability, that under its watch, life could return to something like normal. For civilians who were desperate for any sense of calm, that effort mattered. At least someone is in charge, one shopkeeper told a foreign journalist. We just want peace. Any peace. But the peace Hamas offered came with conditions. Patrols filled the streets, curfews were imposed. Anyone caught violating new rules faced arrest or worse. Men were stopped and searched at random checkpoints. Phones were checked for messages criticizing the group. Journalists were warned not to report anything that might damage public order. Behind every act of rebuilding was another act of repression. People quickly learned that even though the bombs had stopped, fear had not disappeared. It had simply changed shape. Outside Gaza, the world was watching. Israel described the withdrawal as a tactical move, a step toward peace that also reduced direct confrontation. Western governments welcomed the ceasefire, hoping it could open a door to reconstruction and diplomacy. But those hopes faded as reports came out of Gaza describing Hamas's tightening grip. Instead of losing power, the group seemed stronger than ever. It now controlled every checkpoint, every aid delivery, and every form of communication inside the Strip. The United States and several Arab nations called on Hamas to disarm and allow humanitarian access without restrictions. Washington warned that Gaza's recovery depended on political reform and the protection of civilians. Yet, Hamas ignored those demands. Its leaders declared that their weapons were essential for defense and that foreign interference would not be tolerated. For them, the ceasefire was not peace, it was breathing room, a chance to reorganize and fortify their position. On the ground, ordinary people felt the difference immediately. In Rafah, men whispered in cafes about arrests that happened overnight. In Khan Yunis, families found their neighbors missing, accused of collaborating with Israel. In Gaza City, masked fighters guarded intersections once patrolled by local police. The old structures of authority were gone, replaced by a new, harsher order. Fear spread quietly like smoke after a fire. Still, daily life struggled to continue. Children played soccer between piles of debris. Women reopened small bakeries to sell bread and tea. Aid trucks entered through Egypt, unloading food, water, and medicine, all inspected by Hamas before distribution. To outsiders, it might have looked like recovery. But for many Gazans, it felt like survival under watchful eyes. Every bit of help came with a price: obedience. Hamas also began to rebuild its public image. Its spokesman appeared on local television promising unity and reconstruction. They showcased reopened mosques, repaired roads, and humanitarian convoys. The message was clear. Hamas had survived Israel's assault and was once again the protector of Gaza. But behind the speeches, its internal security units continued rounding up dissenters. Rival militants, former Palestinian Authority officials, and outspoken critics were detained or disappeared. Order was returning, but freedom was not. Ironically, Israel's offensive, meant to weaken Hamas, had done the opposite. By destroying much of Gaza's old infrastructure and governance, it left a vacuum that only Hamas was organized enough to fill. Now, with no foreign army inside the territory, it ruled uncontested. Every supply truck, every aid group, every news report had to go through its approval. For all its losses, Hamas had reclaimed what mattered most: control. For the civilians who remained, the mood was conflicted. They were grateful the fighting had stopped, but uneasy about the new reality. They could sleep without fearing airstrikes, yet they could not speak freely. They could rebuild homes but not hope for open elections or real independence. Gaza had survived the war, but it had not escaped the cycle of domination that defined it. At night, the city glowed faintly with generator light. Families sat together, staring out over the ruins, listening to the silence that now replaced the sound of bombs. The ceasefire had given them rest, but not peace. Across the border, Israel claimed success. In Gaza, Hamas celebrated victory. But for the ordinary people caught between them, victory felt like another kind of prison, one where the walls were made not of stone, but of power and fear. The guns had stopped firing, but Gaza was not free. The war had ended, yet control remained. As Hamas tightened its grip on the streets, one truth became clear. Sometimes, when the soldiers leave, the battle for power is only beginning, and in the ruins of Gaza, that battle is far from over.